My mom always used me for money, so finally I cut her off completely. It started small when I was 16. $20 here, 50 there. Just until payday, honey. You know how tight things are. I worked weekends at a grocery store, saving for college. She'd cry about the electric bill or car insurance, and I'd hand over my paycheck like the good son I was supposed to be. You're such a lifesaver, she'd say, hugging me tight. I don't know what I'd do without you. Payday never came. The money never got paid back. By 19, I'd given up on college. My savings account had $340 in it, instead of the $8,000 I'd scraped together. She'd needed it for emergencies that always seemed to involve new clothes or dinner with her boyfriend. When I confronted her, she cried harder. After everything I've done for you, I raised you alone. Your father left us with nothing. The guilt worked every time. I got a better job at 21. Office work, decent salary, benefits. Within a month, she was asking about my big corporate paycheck and how nice it must be to have so much money. Can you cover my rent this month? I'm a little short. A little short turned into 3 months of rent. Then 6. Then she just stopped pretending it was temporary. I moved out at 22, got my own place across town. But I was still paying her rent because she said she couldn't afford it without me. You're doing so well now, she'd say. I'm barely scraping by. The breaking point came at my cousin's wedding last month. She cornered me at the reception, champagne in hand, asking if I could help out with a new car. Her current one was fine, just old. I saw this gorgeous SUV, she gushed. Only $40,000. You could co-sign since your credit is better. My credit was only better because I'd spent 3 years rebuilding what she destroyed by opening cards in my name when I was 18. No, I said. Her face changed. Not sad, angry. Excuse me? I said no. I'm not co-signing. I'm not giving you money anymore. She laughed like I'd told a joke. Don't be ridiculous. Family helps family. Then pay me back the $30,000 you owe me first. The number surprised even me. I'd never actually added it up before. Her expression went cold. I gave you life. I fed you, clothed you, kept a roof over your head for 18 years. You don't get to charge me for being your mother, and you don't get to bill me for the rest of my... I left the wedding early. She called 16 times that night. Then my uncle called. Your mother's devastated, he said. She's crying, saying you've abandoned her. Did she mention the $30,000? Silence. Didn't think so? I blocked her number the next month, changed my banking password, removed her as an emergency contact at work. For 2 weeks, nothing. Then yesterday, a process server showed up at my apartment. My mom is suing me for emotional distress and unjust enrichment. The lawsuit claims I promised ongoing financial support and created, then maliciously abandoned her, causing severe emotional harm and financial hardship. She's asking for $50,000 in damages. I sat there staring at the paper, hands shaking, when my phone rang. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Hi, sweetie. My mom's voice came through, syrupy sweet. Did you get my message? We can make this all go away. Just resume the payments and add a little extra for my legal fees. Otherwise, this gets ugly. And trust me, I have proof of things that'll make you wish you'd just been a good son. I hung up without saying a word. My hands were shaking so badly I had to set the phone down on my kitchen counter. The lawsuit papers sat next to it, official and threatening with their legal letterhead and my mother's signature at the bottom. Proof of things that'll make you wish you'd just been a good son. What did that even mean? I called the only person I could think of. My best friend Andre had been watching this situation unfold for years, always telling me I needed to set boundaries. Always there when I needed to vent about another emergency that drained my account. She's suing you? His voice went up an octave. Are you kidding me right now? $50,000 for emotional distress and something called unjust enrichment. That's insane. You've been enriching her for 7 years. I paced my small apartment. The lawsuit papers feeling like they were burning a hole in my... She said she has proof of something. Something that'll make me regret cutting her off. Andre was quiet for a moment. What could she possibly have? I don't know. But she sounded confident. You need a lawyer. Like, yesterday. He was right. I spent the next hour searching for attorneys who handled family law cases. Most wanted retainers I couldn't afford. Not after years of funding my mother's lifestyle. Finally, I found someone willing to do a free consultation. Her name was Patricia Okonkwo, and her office was in a building that had seen better days. But her reviews were solid, and she'd handled cases involving financial abuse before. I showed up the next morning with a folder full of documentation, bank statements, text messages, a spreadsheet I'd started building the night before, tracking every dollar I could remember giving my mother over the years. Patricia was in her 50s, with gray-streaked hair pulled back in a tight bun and reading glasses perched on her nose. She took the lawsuit papers from me and read through them in silence. This is garbage, she said finally. Complete garbage. But garbage we still have to deal with. Can she actually win? No. Make your life miserable for the next 6 months? Absolutely. She set the papers down and looked at me directly. The question is, what's she really after? Because this lawsuit isn't going anywhere, and any half-decent attorney would have told her that. She wants me to give her money again. She said we could make it all go away if I just resume payment. Patricia nodded slowly. So this is leverage. She's trying to scare you into compliance. She tapped the papers. Tell me about this proof, she mentioned. I explained the phone call, my mother's threat, the confidence in her voice. Could there be anything? Anything at all that she could use against you? I thought hard. I can't think of what. I mean, I've given her money, but that was all voluntary. She never forced me. Voluntary under duress is different from voluntary. If she manipulated you, guilt-tripped you, that changes things. Patricia leaned back in her chair, but her threat suggests something else. Something specific. The night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying my mother's words, trying to figure out what she could possibly have. Around 3 a.m., I grabbed my laptop and started going through old email, searching for anything that might be ammunition. I found it in an email from 4 years ago. I'd been 21, desperate to get her to stop asking for money. I'd lied and told her I was under investigation at work for some minor compliance issue, that I needed to keep a low profile and couldn't move any money around for a while. She'd been furious. called me a liar. So I doubled down and sent her a fake email that looked like it was from my company's HR department, warning me about suspicious financial activity in my account. I'd forgotten about it completely, but she'd saved it. I felt sick. That email could be twisted to look like I'd been involved in something, like I'd been using company money inappropriately. It was fake, completely made up, but proving that would be my word against hers. The next morning, I showed Patricia the email. She read it twice, then looked up at me. This is what she's holding over you? It's fake. I made it up to get her to leave me alone for a few weeks, but she could claim I was really under investigation, that I've been using dirty money to pay her, that she's entitled to compensation for emotional distress because I involved her in something illegal. That's a stretch, but possible. Patricia was quiet. In court, no judge would buy it. But in the court of public opinion, your employer finds out you forged company emails, even fake ones about fake investigations. That could be a problem. My stomach dropped. She's smart, Patricia continued. This isn't about winning a lawsuit. It's about having enough ammunition to make you fold, to make the cost of fighting back higher than the cost of just giving her what she wants. So what do? You fight anyway. Patricia closed the folder. Because if you give in now, this never ends. She bleeds you dry for the rest of your life, always holding this over you. We respond to the lawsuit, we depose her, and we make it as expensive and uncomfortable for her as possible. I can't afford expensive. I know, but she doesn't know that I know that. Patricia smiled grimly. I'm going to draft a response that makes it clear we're not backing down. We'll request discovery, demand to see all her financial records, depose everyone she's ever mentioned you to. We'll make this so painful that she be the one wanting to drop it. I left her office feeling slightly better. That afternoon, my uncle called again. Your mother is really hurt, he started. Did she tell you she's suing me? Pause. She mentioned there was a legal issue. A legal issue. She's suing me for $50,000 because I stopped letting her drain my bank account. That's not how she explained it. Of course, I was in my car, sitting in my work parking lot, not ready to go inside you. Did she mention the $30,000 I've already given her? The credit cards she opened in my name? The college fund that disappeared. My uncle sighed. Look, I'm not saying she's perfect, but she's family. And family works these things out. I tried working it out for 7 years. She worked out how to take every dollar I earned. She raised you alone. Your dad left her with nothing. She's told me that approximately 10,000 times. Being a single parent doesn't give you the right to financially abuse your kid for the rest of their life. Another pause. Financially abuse? That's a little dramatic. This was why I'd stopped talking to my extended family. My mom had spent years building a narrative where she was the victim, the struggling single mother, and I was the ungrateful son who'd made it and forgotten where he came from. I have to go. Just think about what I said. About family. I hung up and sat there, watching coworkers walk into the office building. Normal people with normal problems. Nobody suing them. Nobody threatening to expose fake emails from 4 years ago. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is your last chance. Drop the lawyer, send $5,000 as a show of good faith, and we can forget this whole thing. Otherwise, I'm contacting your employer to Mom, $5,000 as a show of good faith. And she'd probably be back next month asking for more. And the month after that forever, because that's what I forwarded the text to Patricia. She called me immediately. Is she threatening to contact your employer? Yes. Perfect. That's harassment. We're adding that to our response. I could hear her typing. I'm also going to send her attorney a letter making it clear that any contact with your employer will be considered witness intimidation and harassment. This woman is digging her own grave. Her attorney is probably just doing what she's paying them to do. Oh. I doubt she's paying much. This is probably some strip mall lawyer who took her case on a contingency, thinking they could scare you into a quick settlement. Once they realize you're actually fighting back, they'll drop her so fast. I wanted to believe that. But my mother had always been good at getting what she wanted. She'd had years of practice manipulating me, and she knew exactly which buttons to push. That night, I couldn't focus on anything. I tried watching TV, playing video games, anything to distract me. But I kept checking my email, waiting for some message from her or her lawyer or employer. Around midnight, Andre showed up at my door with beer and pizza. You look like death, he said, pushing past me into the apartment. Thanks. I'm serious. When's the last time you slept? I couldn't remember. 2 days ago? 3? We sat on my couch, and I filled him in on everything. The email I'd forged years ago. My mother's threats. The text demanding $5,000. She's bluffing, Andre said finally. Think about it. If she actually contacts your employer, she loses her leverage. Right now, she's got you scared. The moment she pulls that trigger, you've got nothing left to lose. Unless my employer fires me, and then I really do have nothing left. They're not going to fire you over a fake email from 4 years ago about a fake investigation. That's insane. But they might question whether I'm trustworthy, whether I've been lying about other things. Andre was quiet, eating his Finally, he said, you know what I think? I think you're so used to her manipulation that you can't see how weak her position actually is. She's broke, right? That's why she's been hitting you up for money all these years. She can't afford a real lawyer. She can't afford to drag this out. She's desperate, and desperate people make stupid mistakes. I wanted to believe him. The next morning, I got an email from Patricia. She'd filed our response to the lawsuit and sent a strongly worded letter to my mother's attorney. The response laid out my counterclaim for the money she owed me, requested full financial discovery, and made it clear we were prepared to go to trial. Let's see what happens now, Patricia wrote. Usually, once the other side realizes there's going to be actual work involved, they fold. Usually. For 3 days, nothing happened. I went to work, came home, tried to live my life while constantly checking my phone for messages from unknown numbers. Then, on Friday afternoon, Patricia called. Her lawyer withdrew from the case. I almost dropped my phone. What? I got a notice this morning. Her attorney filed a motion to withdraw as counsel. She's on her own now. Is that good? It's very good. It means her lawyer realized this was a garbage case and didn't want their name on it. Your mother can either find a new attorney, which is going to be difficult given that she's already burned one, or she can represent herself, which is going to go very badly for her. For the first time in weeks, I felt something like hope. So what happens now? Now we wait. She has 30 days to either find new representation or file something herself, my guess. She drops the whole thing within a week. I hung up and just sat at my desk, staring at my computer screen. My coworker in the next cube looked over. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. Better than a ghost. I think I just watched my mother's lawsuit fall apart. He didn't ask for details, which I appreciated. That weekend I did something I hadn't done in years. I went out with friends and actually had fun. We hit a bar downtown, played pool, and I didn't check my phone every 5 minutes. Around 11 p.m. though, my uncle called. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Your mother is very upset, he said without preamble. I heard her lawyer quit. She can't afford another attorney. She's trying to figure out how to represent herself. Good, I thought but didn't say. She's my sister, my uncle continued. I hate seeing her like this. She did this to herself. She made mistakes, but she's still your mother. Don't you think you owe her something? There it was, the guilt trip, the family obligation card. I owed her 18 years of my childhood, and she got that. I don't owe her the rest of my life. So you're just going to let her lose everything? Let her be homeless? She's not going to be homeless. She has that apartment I was paying rent on for years. She can get a job like the rest of us. My uncle's voice went cold. You've changed. Money's changed you. I laughed. Actually laughed. Money? I'm living in a one-bedroom apartment driving a 10-year-old Honda because every spare dollar I made for 7 years went to her. But sure, money's changed me. I hung up. Andre, who'd been listening to my half of the conversation, raised his beer. That's what I'm talking, growth. But later that night, alone in my apartment, the guilt crept back in. The voice in my head that sounded like my mother, telling me I was selfish, ungrateful, cruel. I texted Patricia. Is it normal to feel guilty even though I know I'm doing the right thing? She responded immediately. Extremely normal. That's what years of manipulation does. But feeling guilty doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means you have a conscience, which is more than I can say for your mother. Monday morning, I got to work early. My boss wanted to talk about a new project, something that would mean a promotion if I handled it well. I should have been excited. Instead, I spent the whole meeting distracted, waiting for the other shoe to drop. It dropped at lunch. I got an email from my company's HR department. Subject line, request to discuss personal matter. My hands went numb. I clicked it open. They wanted to meet with me that afternoon at 2 p.m. about a concern that had been brought to their attention regarding my conduct. She'd actually done it. She'd contacted my employer. I called Patricia immediately. What exactly does the email say? She asked. I read it to her word for word. Okay, first, don't panic. Second, be completely honest with them. Explain the situation, show them the lawsuit, tell them about your mother's harassment. Companies deal with this kind of thing more than you'd think. What if they fire me? On what grounds? You haven't done anything wrong. And if they do, which I doubt, we'll have a wrongful termination suit that'll make your mother's case look like small claims court. I wasn't reassured. At 2 p.m., I walked into the HR office feeling like I was heading to my own execution. The HR director, a woman named Francine, sat across from me with a neutral expression. Thank you for coming in, she said. We received a phone call this morning from someone claiming to be your mother. She made some allegations about your conduct that we need to address. My mouth went dry. What kind of allegation? She claimed you've been involved in financial misconduct, that you forged company documents and have been under investigation for the past several years. Francine's expression didn't change. She seemed very concerned about the company's exposure to legal liability if we continued employing you. I felt sick. None of that is true, I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. I've never been under investigation. I've never forged company documents. My mother is currently suing me because I stopped giving her money, and this is her attempt to pressure me into settling. I pulled out my phone and showed Francine the text messages from my mother. The lawsuit papers I'd photographed, everything. She read through it all in silence. Finally, she looked up. So this email she mentioned about an HR investigation 4 years ago, that doesn't exist? It doesn't exist in your systems because it was never real. I made it up to get her to stop asking me for money for a few. It was stupid, and I regret it, but it was never a real company document. Can I see it? I pulled it up on my phone, hands shaking. The fake email I'd created looked official enough if you didn't look too closely, but it had my personal email address on it, not a company one, and the signature was obviously fake. Francine studied it. This is from your personal email account. Yes, because it was fake. I was 21 and desperate. She nodded slowly, then closed her laptop. I'm going to be honest with you. This is one of the strangest situations I've encountered. But based on what you've shown me, this appears to be a personal matter between you and your mother, not a company issue. So I'm not fired? You're not fired. However, she paused. I do need to document this conversation, and I'm going to recommend you work with your attorney to get a restraining order or cease and desist letter preventing your mother from contacting your workplace again. If she continues to harass you here, that becomes a different problem. I left the HR office feeling like I just survived a car crash, shaky, disoriented, but alive. I called Patricia immediately. Restraining order, she said before I could finish explaining. We're filing for one tomorrow. This has crossed the line from a frivolous lawsuit to harassment and interference with your employment. That night, I couldn't eat. I sat in my apartment, laptop open, typing out a timeline of everything that had happened. Every manipulation, every guilt trip, every dollar taken. It was 3 a.m. when I finished. 38 pages of documentation spanning 7 years. I sent it to Patricia with a note. Is this enough? She responded at 6 a.m. It's more than enough. I'll see you at the courthouse at 9. The restraining order hearing was surreal. My mother showed up without an attorney, looking small and vulnerable in a conservative dress I'd never seen her wear before. She'd done her makeup to look tired, stressed. The performance started immediately. Your Honor, she said, her voice breaking. I'm just a mother worried about her son. He's changed so much. I'm concerned about his mental health, his financial decisions. I thought his employer should know. The judge cut her off. Ma'am, You're here because you contacted his employer with false allegation attempt to fear with, is that correct? I wouldn't say false. Did you or did you not tell his employer he was under investigation for financial misconduct? My mother's face changed. The vulnerability dropped for just a second, and I saw the calculation behind it. I may have misspoken. You lied to his employer in an attempt to get him fired, while simultaneously suing him for $50,000. Does that about sum it up? She started crying. Real tears this time, I thought, but not for the reasons she wanted the judge to think. The judge looked at me. And you have documentation of the financial support you've provided her over the years? Patricia handed over my 38-page timeline, along with bank statements, text messages, everything. The judge read through it in silence. When she looked up, her expression had hardened. Ma'am, I'm granting this restraining order. You are not to contact your son, directly or indirectly. You are not to contact his employer, his friends, or anyone else in an attempt to reach him. You are not to come within 500 feet of his residence or workplace. Do you understand? My mother nodded, still crying. Furthermore, I'm dismissing your lawsuit with prejudice. This is clearly a case of harassment, not a legitimate legal claim. If you attempt to refile or continue this pattern of behavior, I will hold you in contempt. She stood up, and for a moment, I thought she might actually apologize, might show some hint of remorse or recognition. Instead, she looked at me and mouthed, "You'll regret this." Then she walked out. I felt nothing. No relief, no victory, just emptiness. Patricia patted my shoulder. It's over. You're free, but it didn't feel over. It felt like I just cut off a part of myself, even if it was a part that had been slowly poisoning me for years. Over the next few weeks, I waited for the other shoe to drop, for her to violate the restraining order, for another scheme for something. Nothing happened. My uncle stopped calling. My extended family went silent. I realized that my mother had been the bridge to all of them, and without her, I was just gone from their lives. It should have hurt more than it did. Andre took me out for my birthday, which I'd completely forgotten about. 25 years old, and I felt ancient. You did it, he said, raising his beer. You actually got free. It doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like I amputated something. That's because you did. But it was gangrene. It was killing you slowly. I thought about that a lot over the next few months. About how sometimes saving yourself means cutting away the people who'd love you, but don't know how. 3 months after the restraining order, I got a promotion at work. The project I'd been worried about during the HR crisis had gone well, and they were bumping me up to senior analyst, a 20% raise. I wanted to call someone to celebrate, but the person I would have called 7 years ago was the same person who'd spent those 7 years bleeding me dry. I texted Andre instead. He showed up with champagne and takeout. You know what the crazy thing is? I said, halfway through the bottle. I still feel guilty, even now. Even after everything. There's this voice in my head that sounds exactly like her, telling me I'm selfish for being happy while she's struggling. That voice is lying to me. I know, but knowing doesn't make it go away. Andre was quiet for a moment. My therapist says that healing isn't about making the damage disappear. It's about learning to live with the scars. You have a therapist? Started going 6 months ago. Turns out watching your best friend get destroyed by his family does a number on you too. He poured more champagne. You should try it. Therapy, I mean. I started seeing a therapist named Dr. Chun 2 weeks later. She specialized in family trauma and financial abuse. Your mother groomed you, she said in our 3rd session. That's not too strong a word. From age 16, she trained you to believe that your value came from what you could provide her financially. That's not love. That's exploitation. Hearing it said out loud like that made something crack open in my chest. But she's my mother, I said, and hated how weak my voice sounded. She's the person who gave birth to you, but parenting is a verb, not just a noun. It's something you do through actions, through sacrifice, through putting your child's needs above your own. From what you've told me, she did the opposite. I cried in that set, and the next one, and the one after that. Slowly, over months, the guilt started to loosen its grip. Not disappear. Dr. Chun was right about the scars, but transform into something I could carry without it destroying me. I started dating someone I met at a work. Her name was Zara, and she worked in marketing for a tech startup. On our 3rd date, I told her about my mother. I expected her to run. Instead, she told me about her father, who'd been an alcoholic and stolen from her college fund to feed his addiction. People think family trauma is always dramatic, she said. But sometimes it's just slow erosion. Someone taking pieces of you until you look up one day and realize there's almost nothing left. I understood exactly what she meant. A year and a half after the restraining order, I got a letter. Not from my mother directly, but from a woman who introduced herself as my mother's sponsor from a recovery group. The letter explained that my mother was working on herself, that she understood now she'd been wrong, that she wanted to apologize but respected the restraining order. She asked me to tell you she's sorry, the letter read. Not because she wants anything from you, but because you deserve to hear it. I read it 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer and didn't respond. Dr. Chun asked me about it in our next session. How did reading it make you feel? Confused, angry, a little hopeful, which made me angry. Why did hope make you angry? I thought about that. Because even now, part of me wants to believe she can change, that she'd become the mother I needed her to be. And that part of me is dangerous. Why dangerous? Because it'll get me hurt again. It'll let her back in, and then we're right back where we started. Dr. Chun leaned back in her chair. Does her potential growth require your participation? Are you obligated to give her another chance? I don't think I am. Then you have your answer. But 2 months later, another letter came. This one was directly from my mother, violating the restraining order. It was 5 pages long, handwritten. She talked about her childhood, her own abusive parents, the way she'd been hurt and how she'd passed that hurt on to me without meaning to. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, she wrote, but I want you to know that I see it now. I see what I did to you, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm not asking you to let me back into your life. I just needed you to know that I finally understand what I took. And I'm trying to become someone who wouldn't do that to another person ever again. I read it 3 times. Then I called Patricia. She violated the restraining order, I said. Do you want to file charges? I thought about it. About my mother being arrested, fingerprinted, maybe spending a night in jail. No, I said finally. But I want the restraining order extended. And I want it clear that any further contact will result in immediate charges. Patricia filed the paperwork that afternoon. That night, I wrote my own letter. Not to my mother, but to myself. I wrote about the kid I'd been at 16, excited about college, believing that hard work and sacrifice would pay off. About the young man at 21, slowly realizing that the pit he was throwing money into had no bottom. About the person I was now at 26, trying to figure out who I was without the weight of her needs crushing. I wrote about forgiveness and how it didn't mean reconciliation, about how I could acknowledge her pain and still choose not to let that pain break me further. I never sent it anywhere. It lived in a file on my computer, a testament to survival. 2 years after the restraining order, Zara and I moved in together. She'd met Andre by then, and they'd formed their own friendship, which felt like family in a way my actual family never had. We were unpacking boxes in our new apartment when my phone rang. Unknown number. I'd learned to let those go to voicemail. This one was from a hospital. My mother had been in a car accident. Nothing life-threatening, but she'd listed me as her emergency contact, and they needed someone to pick her up. I called the hospital back and told them I couldn't help. Gave them my uncle's number instead. Zara found me sitting on the bathroom floor 20 minutes later. She could have died, I said. And all I felt was relief that she didn't, because then I wouldn't have to feel guilty about not going to her funeral. Zara sat down next. That's not as horrible as you think it sounds. It feels horrible. You know what would be worse? Rushing to that hospital, getting sucked back in, and spending another 7 years being drained dry. She took my hand. You're not a bad person for protecting, even from your mother. Especially from your mother. My uncle called later that night. I didn't answer, but he left a voicemail. She's asking for you. She's really hurt, and she's alone. I know you two have had your problems, but she's still your mother. Family is supposed to be there for each other. I deleted the voicemail. Dr. Chen and I talked about it in our next session. Do you feel guilty? She asked. Yes, but I also know that guilt is... She trained me to feel responsible for her well-being. That training doesn't disappear just because I understand it. No, it doesn't, but recognizing it is important. You can feel guilty and still make the right choice. Is it the right choice? She was in a car accident. She was in a minor car accident. And she has other family members who can help her. Your uncle, apparently. Friends, if she hasn't driven them all away. She's not actually alone unless she's made herself alone. That hit hard. You think she has? I think people who manipulate their children usually have a pattern of manipulating others. You might be the first one who actually cut her off completely. Or you might not be. A week later, my uncle showed up at my apartment unannounced. I opened the door to find him standing there, looking older than I remembered. We need to talk, he said. I don't think we do. Your mother almost died. She's depressed, she's struggling, and you won't even visit her in the hospital. She had a minor car accident, and there's a restraining order that says I can't visit her even if I wanted to. A restraining order you could drop. I'm not dropping it. My uncle's face hardened. You know what? Your mother was right about you. You did change. Money turned you cold. I almost laughed. Money? I drive a 12-year-old car and live in a 2-bedroom apartment because I spent my 20s funding her lifestyle. But sure, money made me cold. She raised you, sacrificed everything for you. She sacrificed my college fund, my credit score, and 7 years of my financial stability. That's what she sacrificed. My uncle shook his head. You're going to regret this. One day she be gone and you'll realize what you threw away. I already know what I threw away. A lifetime of manipulation, guilt trips, and financial abuse. And I'm fine with that. He left without another word. Zara had been listening from the kitchen. She came out and wrapped her arms around me. You okay? Yeah, I think I actually am. The holidays came. Thanksgiving, then Christmas. My first ones without my mother's voice in my head, telling me what I owed her. Zara and I hosted Friendsgiving at our apartment. Andre brought his new girlfriend. Some coworkers came. People who chose to be there, not people obligated by blood. It was the best Thanksgiving I'd ever had. On Christmas Eve, I got a card in the mail. From my mother, another restraining order violation. Inside was a photo of me as maybe 7 years old, sitting on her lap, both of us smiling. On the back, she'd written, "We were happy once. We could be again." I showed it to Zara. Are you going to report this one? She asked. I looked at the photo, at the little boy who didn't know yet what the next 18 years would hold, at the woman who looked like any other mother, not like someone who would spend decades treating her son like an ATM. Yeah, I said. Patricia filed a violation report the next day. This time there were consequences. My mother was arrested, spent 3 days in jail, and was ordered to undergo mandatory counseling as part of her probation. I didn't feel victorious, I just felt tired. When does it end? I asked Doctor, when do I stop waiting for the next thing? When you accept that there might always be a next thing, but it doesn't have to control your life. She leaned forward. Your mother is going to keep trying. That's what people like her do. But you've built a fortress now. Legally, emotionally, financially. She can knock on the gates all she wants. You don't have to let her in. That image stuck with a fortress. High walls, strong gates, safe inside. It took another 6 months before I stopped checking over my shoulder. Before I stopped expecting every unknown number to be her, every piece of mail to be another manipulation. Zara and I got engaged that spring. Simple proposal. Just us on a hiking trail we both loved. When we started planning the wedding, she asked if I wanted to invite my mother. Absolutely not. Not even supervised? Not even, Zara, I love you. But if she shows up at our wedding, I'm walking out. I mean that. She nodded. Okay. I just wanted to make sure you'd thought about it. I've thought about nothing but her for most of my life. This is me thinking about us instead. The wedding was small. Andre was my best man. Zara's family filled most of this, warm and normal and everything I'd never had. During the reception, I got a text from an unknown number. I know I wasn't invited, but I'm outside the venue. I just want to see you happy. Just for a moment, please. My hands started shaking. Andre noticed. What's wrong? I showed him the text. I'll handle it, he said immediately. You stay here with your wife. He came back 10 minutes later. She's gone. Security escorted her off the property. I also called the cops and reported the restraining order violation. She was actually here, sitting in her car in the parking lot. Probably planned to crash the wedding if you didn't come out. I thought about that. About how close she'd come to ruining the best day of my life. Thank you, I said. That's what family does, Andre replied. Real family. My mother was arrested again that night. This time the judge wasn't lenient. 30 days in jail for repeated violations, mandatory counseling extended to a year, and a warning that any further contact would result in felony charges. Dr. Chen asked me how I felt about it. Relieved, I said, and angry and free. All of it at once. That's healthy. It would be stranger if you felt nothing. Will I ever stop feeling guilty for not fixing her? Do you think you could fix her? I thought about that. About 7 years of trying to make her happy by giving her about the lawsuits, the harassment, the wedding day ambush. No, I said finally. She's not broken in a way I can fix. Maybe she's not even broken. Maybe this is just who she is. Maybe she's both. But either way, fixing her was never your job. Then whose job is it? Hers. Only hers. A year later, Zara and I had our first child. A daughter we named Iris. I held her in the hospital, this tiny perfect thing, and thought about all the ways I could screw her up. All the ways my mother had screwed me up. I'm terrified, I told Zara. Of what? Of becoming her. Of somehow passing this on. Zara took my hand. You know what the difference is? You're aware of it. You're actively trying not to repeat the pattern. That's already more than she ever did. I started going to a parenting support group specifically for people who'd survived childhood trauma. We talked about breaking cycle, about conscious parenting, about how to love your kids without using them. It helped more than I expected. Iris is 2 now. She knows she has a grandmother on my side, but she's never met her. When she asks about it, we tell her the truth in age-appropriate terms. Some people aren't safe to be around, Zara explains. Even if they're family. Keeping you safe is our most important job. My mother tried to contact me again 6 months ago. A letter addressed to Iris's grandmother showed up at our house. Inside was a birthday card for Iris. Her birthday was still 4 months away, and a note about how Iris deserved to know her grandmother, how children need their grandparents, how I was being selfish by keeping them apart. I burned it. Andre asked me about it when we met for coffee. Don't you worry she'll find another way in? Through Iris's school or something? I've already talked to the school. Her name and photo are on the no-contact list. Same with the daycare, the pediatrician, everyone. I stirred my coffee. She's not getting anywhere near my daughter. How does it feel? Being a dad? Terrifying, amazing. Like the stakes of everything just multiplied by 1,000. You're doing a good job, man. Better than you think. I wanted to believe him. Last week, I got a call from a hospital social. My mother had been admitted for pneumonia, and she was asking, I'm not able to help, I said. She's listed you as her next of kin. I can give you contact information for her brother, but I can't come. There's a restraining order. There was a pause. She says you're all she has. That's her choice. She had me for 25 years. She chose to treat me like an AT instead of a son. I'm not responsible for the consequences of her choices. I hung up feeling like I'd passed some kind of test. Dr. Chen agreed in our next session. You set a boundary, a hard one. That's growth. It doesn't feel like growth. It feels like cruelty because you've been conditioned to believe that boundaries are cruel. They're not. They're necessary. They're how we protect ourselves and the people we love. My mother recovered from the pneumonia. My uncle didn't contact me, which I took as a sign that he'd finally given up trying to guilt me in resuming my role as her personal. This is my life now. 4 years since I cut her off completely. I have Zara. I have Iris. I have Andre and Dr. Chen and a life I built myself, without funding it with guilt and stolen dreams. Some nights I still feel the weight of it. The mother-shaped hole in my life, the family I don't have, the relationships that died when I chose myself. But most nights I sleep peacefully, because I'm not checking my bank account in a panic. I'm not crafting careful responses to guilt trip texts. I'm not sacrificing my future for someone who sees me as a resource instead of a person. I'm finally learning what it means to be free. It doesn't look like I thought it would. There's no dramatic victory, no moment where everything clicks into place and the guilt disappears forever. It's just quiet, peaceful, mine. Last night, Iris asked me about my childhood. Were you happy when you were little, Daddy? She said, I thought about it. Really thought about it. Sometimes, I told her. But I'm happier now. Because of me and Mama? Because of you and Mama. Because I made some hard choices to keep us all safe. She didn't fully understand. She's only 2. But someday she will. Someday she'll be old enough to know that I had a mother who taught me exactly how not to parent. Who showed me that love without respect is just manipulation with a prettier name. And she know that I chose differently. One chose her. I chose Zara. I chose myself. And I'd make that choice again every single time. This morning, I woke up to Iris climbing into our bed, her small hands patting my face to wake me up. Zara was already making coffee in the kitchen. Andre had texted about meeting for lunch later. Normal things. Simple things. The kind of life my mother's money could never buy because it was never really about the money. It was about control. About keeping me tethered to her through guilt and obligation and the belief that I owed her everything. But I don't. I owe my daughter a father who's present and whole. I owe my wife a partner who's not being bled dry. I owe myself the chance to live a life that's actually mine. And that's exactly what I'm doing. The fortress holds.